RTD Live Talk, Detroit's number one YouTube talk show. We are live for a Wednesday midweek edition of the People's Talk Show. Excited to connect and find out what's on your radar and get a chance to hear from the community. Let your voice be heard. As always, want to make sure I welcome any first-time viewers to the community. Definitely in the chat, let me know where you're watching from. Would love to acknowledge your presence. And then when the phone lines open up, 313-462-0027 is the number you can call and let some steam off your shoulders. Let your thoughts run wild. But let's dive in. So anyway, welcome to the live stream. Hope everyone's doing well. As always, want to make sure that if you have any thoughts, articles, videos, make sure you connect on the Discord or the Telegram. Social media tabs down below where you can share articles. I tend to grab things from the community to touch on during the live stream. So we'll love to share what you're keeping an eye on. Let me jump into the chat real quick, and I have a gang of things I want to get through first, so I got to hurry up on my end. But we got Rusty Bent Hammer checking in. Appreciate you. We got Dude Boy. We got Bizarcum Stacker NZ checking in. We got Mass Administrator. We got Dude Boy. We got Jay. Looks like he's 85 and sunny in Arizona. We got Brett. We got Pablo. Tom checking in. We got Brian checking. It says crude oil hit $112 a barrel today. Mining costs for silver and gold will go up, taking the fiat price along with it. 100%. We're going to touch on that a little bit today as well. What else we got here? Faith Parent checking in. Only Lord knows. Brian B. We got Jan the Liberty Lion checking in from the Republic of Texas. Appreciate you. What else? We got Ed, Free Thinker, Paul from Eugene, Jason, Nasara, Jasara, Mike Smith, Bougie Prepper checking in. So good deal, man. Fair amount of people. Appreciate you for blessing me with your presence. As always, if you don't mind, hit the thumbs up right now. Hopefully that alert the algorithms to notify some people. And also make sure you click the bell notification and hopefully you'll be notified. You know, I can't make no guarantees when it comes to this platform here, but I'll do the best I can. XRP Currency says, question, RTD, let me jump on this real quick, says, Russia kicked off SWIFT, read somewhere that they have their own internal system. Russia will only sell in non-US fiat currency. So the whole SWIFT thing, I was actually watching a couple of, deep dives down the rabbit hole to try to better understand the interworkings of the SWIFT system because it's an extremely complex mechanism. But according to a lot of experts in that field, it's more so on the messaging side, the actual quote unquote, the top layer of the actual communication via the, confirmations via text messaging style approach of confirming on both ends. The actual payment rail itself is not as hindered as they would like for us to believe it is. So funds technically can still flow back and forth in accordance to how they deem them necessary. And of course, they haven't really decided to sanction the oil side of things for Russia, especially dealing with the U.S. Side of things. So it's more, it's more of a lot of barking on the surface, but underneath they are still very compromising on the extent of those sanctions. So they're telling us they're hitting them hard, but underneath the surface, they're not as hard as, the average, Joe might look at it as, or someone that's an expert in that field. So anyway, all right. So I want to jump right in. Had a chance to listen to the monetary and economic policy hearing today. Jerome Powell let out a couple nuggets here and there, but one thing that caught my attention was his stance on gold. And even he was quoted as saying that it is possible for there to, for two reserve currencies to exist. And of course, there actually is two world reserve currencies, and it's starting to get more mainstream attention. And I'm going to talk about it even more because it's the essence of true money from a historical standpoint. It has to do with gold. And of course, that is the Achilles of the monetary structure because they don't want people to realize the importance of it, as well as silver. So there's going to be more stories coming out about it, trying to downplay the importance of it. But yet central bankers in and of themselves, in order for those entities, those corporations to be successful, they have to downplay gold, silver, anything that, triggers what used to be, sound monetary structures such as gold and silver that limited their ability and pretty much hindered them from being able to accomplish their agenda of basically flooding the world with fiat currency as well as their digital ledger versions and things like that. So it hinders their future for the world to find out about gold. So I'm going to definitely highlight that today. And I'm going to start off with just sharing a couple videos real quick for those that are plugged in. And we'll go from there. Got a lot of articles. And also I want to show you how it's good to look at what's happening in the Ukraine and Russian region, not from a standpoint of a Western viewpoint of like, we're here in America, we have the reserve currency, everything is good, I have everything I need, I have all my things taken care of. But yet it's also good to put yourself or try to put yourself in the shoes of someone that's under financial assault in the way that the Russians and the Ukrainians are on a personal level. Like put yourself in the shoes of a middle class working father just going to work trying to provide for your family, and all of a sudden due to things beyond your control, you don't have anything to say about what's happening to your country. Banks are closing, bank runs, the currency's tanking, your financial portfolio, your retirement accounts are being attacked. So it's like, imagine the amount of panic they're experiencing. Put yourself in their shoes if you could. And I'm going to show you how, we're not much different than them at the end of all this. And I'm going to show you via graph how that is. But anyway, let me stop ranting. Let me get into some videos real quick, and then I'll shine my 2 cents on a little bit more after that.
Are really vehicles for speculation. The existing digital currencies that again are not backed are really vehicles for speculation. They're not used in payments. They're not a store of value. They're speculation like gold. That's what they're used for. Whereas potentially a U.S. CBDC would have a wider view. I do want to stress we have not decided to do it, but we do understand our obligation is to really get to the bottom and understand both the technical and the policy issues that need to be answered.
All right, so let me just chime on that a little bit. So here I have on the screen, put together. This is some artwork from years ago. I've always talked about central bankers and their stance on gold and things like that. So I have videos from other central bankers. But here you can see how the Federal Reserve in particular has been able to control and dominate the world's monetary structure through, of course, the Fed funds rate and things of that nature, being able to control the elasticity of currency and all, of course, the complications in the euro, dollar, and all that other stuff that goes beyond my pay grade. But anyway, here you have the last, what it looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8, last 8 central bankers under this current monetary paradigm, all dealing with the Federal Reserve note. So right now, basically what's happening in Russia, as I mentioned before, is not what it seems. It's more so, and of course, get more information out on the alternative side of things, basically letting us know that what's happening with Russia and Ukraine is more of a Eastern cleaning of house when it comes to basically alleviating some of the real bad actors for humanity just operating through Ukraine and all that other stuff that will come out eventually. But yet, here we have the central banks today, Jerome Powell in particular, talking about how gold is a speculation like cryptocurrencies. It's not being used for payments. It's not a good store of value. But that's what they would want us to believe. But in actuality, I think Russia, what they're doing now is going to actually bring more attention to gold and let people know that it can be used as a payment mechanism. We're going to figure out how that happens. And it has a lot to do with oil. And, shouts out to TB for bringing to my attention some of the past infrastructure that's been set up with the Shanghai Futures Exchange as well as the Shanghai Energies Future, which is making some big moves over in China. And it has to do with gold and oil being linked together at some point. And even back in 2018, I was talking about how with the announcement of the Shanghai Futures and the possibility of China redeeming oil contracts in physical gold, that's still on the table. And so once again, we're going to find out how all this plays out. But yet Russia and China working hand in hand, I would imagine they have some things well thought out, which will make gold look really, really good in the interim. And then also, let me play this other video here from Mr. Alan Greenspan that tells you a different narrative than what they would like us to believe when it comes to gold. So take a listen to this one.
Really interesting chapters in your book is about gold. And there's been a lot of media debate in the past about your views on gold. You yourself have posed the question as to why would anyone want to buy this barbarous relic. But do you think that gold is currently a good investment given what you're saying about the potential for turmoil?
Yes. Look, remember what we're looking at. Gold is a currency. It is still, by all evidences, the premier currency where no fiat currency, including the dollar, can match it. And so that the issue is, if you're looking at a question of turmoil, you will find, as we always have in the past, it moves into the gold price. But the gold price is actually sort of half a commodity price. So when the economy is weakening, it goes down like copper. But It's also got a monetary characteristic which is intrinsic. It's not inbred into human beings. I cannot conceive of any mechanism by which you could say that, but it behaves as though it is. Intrinsic currencies like gold and silver, for example, are acceptable without a third-party guarantee. And the question is, why do central banks put money into an asset which has no rate of return, but cost of storage and insurance and everything else like that? Why are they doing that? If you look at the data, with a very few exceptions, all of the developed countries have gold reserves. Why?
All right, so there you have Alan Greenspan basically coming out and telling the truth on what gold is. And of course, Alan Greenspan is one of the more respected out of the central banking cabal, just because towards the latter part of his life, he's decided to be more truthful in letting the world know what gold is. And so I want to just make sure that I bring to your attention, I try to put together all this artwork and videos so it gets people thinking about what's really happening. So if anybody's interested, I put together, his work in a PDF form on the website. So link to that is down below. Gold and Economic Freedom, a great piece of literature that really tells the truth on gold. And this is his thought process before he became a part of the central banking cartel. So that's just more of a reason why it was truth back then. But, he had to play the game, of course, until, right now when I think he wants to try to be as truthful as he can. So, whatever. But he's MIA as of right now. So he's damn near 90-something years old. So, but anyway, let's move right along. And I just want to share with you as much as I can from the monetary literacy standpoint, because that's what it's all about. So you can't really have a great understanding on financial literacy and how to handle your current financial affairs if you really don't know what money is, in my opinion. So that's why I love to put together all this stuff here. But anyway, the central bankers are running right now. I think they're panicking. They don't want the world to find out the essence of gold and silver. And so that's why if you look at the outright attack on RT, Sputnik, and all the Russian media enterprises to try to make sure that they're not able to reach foreign audiences, i.e. Europe, i.e. what's happening here in the U.S. They're starting to crack back on them. Even if you look on Twitter, any type of article that's shared from a Russian source, they say, the fact checkers, you might want to double check that this might not be accurate, yada, yada, yada. So the attack is on them because I assume that they don't want that, as they say, disinformation coming out of Russia, which, of course, we know from the cabal standpoint or the deep state standpoint, it's more like truth coming out that contradicts their narrative. So anyway, let's keep moving right along. Want to make sure I get through all this as fast as I can. And let me just share with you, as I mentioned, some things that come from the community. And so one of the RTD community members shared something with me on Twitter. And I want to make sure I highlight this real quick. But if you guys can see it, you may not be able to see it. So I'll try to read it as best as I can. Let me know via thumbs up if you guys can read this, because it's very interesting, I'm going to say the least. So what I'll do is I'll thumb through it real quick. But this poses a question. And so this has to do with gold and oil and Russia. Those three words, Russian, gold, and oil. And so basically the whole question here, I'll read this real quick. It says, how does Russia's major producer and holder of gold reserves revalue its physical gold reserves so that they are worth much more than they are today? Keep in mind that the demand for oil and gas greatly outstrips supply. For many, oil is considered to be necessity, and demand is largely inelastic. Says if you have to make a choice between energy and gold, you will probably choose energy. The answer: Russia announces that it will no longer sell oil or gas for any currency effective immediately, maybe in response to being removed from the SWIFT. However, Russia will sell 1,000 barrels of equivalent oil of Russian oil and gas for 1 ounce of physical gold, with oil at about $100 per barrel of energy. He's offering to sell oil and gas value today at around $100,000 for physical gold, which is, well, say for simplicity, worth about $2,000. Investors seeing this great arbitrage would rush to buy physical gold. What happens in the short run? Gold goes no offer. Nobody's willing to sell for $2,000 an ounce, roughly, because energy buyers will pay much more. Gold producers would supply demand a much higher price per ounce. It says within a short time period, arbitrage would drive the price of gold closer to $100,000 per ounce. To be more effective, Russia might put a cap on the amount of variable or energy it offers up so that its marginal amount offered to the market matches perceived marginal demand. Russia produces about whatever. So ultimately saying, if they decided to, as a response to what's happening from the West, decide to literally, we're not going to let any energy leave our country unless we talk about this. We're going to have to come to the table and agree that, I no longer want to accept anybody's currency. And of course, they'll probably just accept, the Chinese yuan, which they're doing right now. But this is just a hypothetical situation thrown out there that is a possibility, given the fact we know Russia has been accumulating a large amount of reserves over the last decade for such an event as this, to where they have enough fiat currency to try to stabilize things. But in the short term, gold will become more important to a lot of other nations if this whole oil for gold narrative changes. And this goes to the discussion I had earlier with Tony B about the Shanghai Futures Exchange dealing with energy and how gold is a part of that equation as well. So this also plays into more of the BRICS, some type of announcement sometime soon, payment network, how they accept, what currency they use for gold and oil. So we'll find out, but just a question to throw out there that should get you thinking about how important gold is. At the same time, Jerome Powell comes out talking about it's for speculation. It doesn't serve as a store of value or for payments. We're going to find out. Anyway, keep it moving. Quick little rundown on the central bank golden holdings according to the IMF. And so here we can see that pretty much all the major nations have been adding something throughout the last couple years, and all the G7 nations are relatively stable, but the smaller nations are the ones that have been a little bit more active. So we got India here, which is not really small. We got Italy got their weight up. Japan, Kazakhstan has gotten their weight up, or actually they're down as of this past year. But over the last couple of years, we see where everybody has been, positioning themselves via gold. So central bankers, as Alan Greenspan said, why are central bankers or central banks running to gold? How come they're taking their fiat currencies and they're using it to get back into gold? Unless gold wasn't a part of the equation at some point in the future. And of course, if you want to believe that the U.S. has 8,133.47 tons in their possession, good luck with that. All right, next story here. Nope, I don't want to touch this one. So now I want to touch on, as I started off talking about the similarities and what's happening with those Ukrainian nations as well as the Russian nations, and how, despite what we're hearing, we're on the outside looking in, hearing different types of narratives. But I was trying to say, put yourself in the shoes of one of the average families, well off, middle class, whatever, just a Russian citizen, a Ukrainian citizen, and in particular, just more so a Russian citizen, as the world assaults their financial markets at all levels. They're cutting off all types of Boeing has stopped doing business with them. All the movies companies, all the entertainment companies, the sports companies, FIFA even banning their sports teams from participating in some places. So imagine being cut off from the world, literally, and the amount of economic pain and ruin is happening in that country now, and no telling how long it's going to drag on. But put yourself in their shoes and try to think in the way that they will think, as from a state of emergency. Like, how would I respond? What could I have done before all this, foreseeing all this come, and then possibly what can I do now? And so let's have that mindset moving forward in the next couple of clips here. But here's just more evidence to the amount of pain happening right now. Russia's Sberbank, if I'm saying that incorrectly, forgive me, collapses 95% on London Stock Exchange as it exits Europe. So imagine owning shares in that company right now. Your portfolio is not doing too well if that's a part of your mixed baskets of financial instruments in your retirement portfolio, per se, if you're a Russian citizen. That's of concern. It should be. Next one here. Nope, let me get to this next one. I'm all out of order here. Let me get myself back together. So here's just more to that same story. ECB orders the European arm of Russia's Sberbank to close, Austria's FMA says. So literally, as of, I think it was yesterday or Monday, they said literally, the license, the financial regulators in the Eastern Europe bloc, basically they revoked the license ultimately of this Sberbank within their region for all their subsidiaries, because literally bank runs were happening within those different countries. So there might have been, I think, Austria, Germany, wherever their European branches are located at, their depositors were running to the banks to get as much as they can off of the sheer fear and sound of hearing about news of what was happening in Russia from that particular Russian bank there. And so they literally revoked their license, told them to shut down, and they literally closed the doors. Basically, people's funds were trapped inside, if it's even there still. So imagine some type of contagion event that will trigger down to other banks, as well as probably other EU banks that have been doing business with this particular branch or company as well. So once again, it's not comfortable, I'd imagine. And then to keep it moving, let me get to a couple other things here. So here's a chart of what's happening with the ruble. And so this is the ruble to dollar chart over the last couple of weeks. And as we can see, because of literally the onslaught of sanctions and the closing off to the financial realm of the country of Russia, the ruble, when weighted in dollar terms, so this is the ruble inverted, reflected in the actual purchasing power of a single unit of currency called a Federal Reserve note. And as you guys can see, it fell off the cliff. And so literally, this is how they're using the narrative. The Russian ruble is worth now less than 1 cent. So this is how you get that right here. So we were up here approximately, 1 cent, 1 ruble, $1, 1 cent equivalent. So now it's approaching 1 cent again, but yet in comparison to the dollar, and so because of the world reserve currency status that we have, it's easy to say that if the Federal Reserve note, if this particular unit here is the standard, let me shade up. If this is the standard to which majority or all fiat currencies have been valued against, this is how you can have a chart that trends downward, because if this is a standard in comparison to this, as far as how many units of rubles it takes to get one of these, you'll need a lot more rubles. And so as we've witnessed over the last week, it's been trending down. And of course, these blip upwards has been the Russian central bank attempting to sell off rubles and or whatever else they have asset wise to support their own currency, to keep it from going free fall completely to zero, which is where this thing can ultimately head to. But yet they've been trying to support it as best they can. And so right now they're trying to get it back up to a penny. Okay. But imagine being on the ownership side of that. If you actually held a Russian ruble in your possession, looking at your account basically dwindle in regards to what you can purchase or can't purchase anymore, that's of major concern. And so if the Federal Reserve note is the standard of the world currently, and we see what's happening within one country, put yourself in their shoes to where your pockets feel a lot tighter in regards to what you can do with the things that you put in your pocket, your savings, your investments, and even your time spent to earn those currencies. You're losing out. Literally, the Russians' citizens' time and future storage of energy has been stolen right now as we speak. My question is, what makes us in the developed world think that we're any different? It's just a matter of timing, and what goes around comes around, and this is where the goal and objective from the central banks and all this narrative that they're trying to create is to keep our attention from realizing that we're no different than Russia, because at some point the world will turn on the Federal Reserve note, which has been the standard. And I think they're doing that right now. And let me show you how. So in order, as in the Western world, having a relatively strong currency and being in a nation that, still has some purchasing power in our currency, AKA the fiat Federal Reserve note, mind you, not all dollars are the same. So I'm gonna keep that in mind. The only measurement or only way we can determine the purchasing power level of our units over here is to compare it against real money, i.e. gold. And this is to go back towards the historical aspects of gold having always been a backbone and center foundation for stability, somewhat outside of the privatization of our national currencies through central banking. So that's the only way we can compare and measure the value of our currency in relation to what we can purchase. And for us, it's how many ounces or kilos or whatever we can purchase with our currency units. And to show you that we're not much different, when you look at the gold valuation to the USD or Federal Reserve note in regards to what you can actually purchase for one single unit, we have been trending down for the last month as well in relation to the amount of purchasing power being lost in these units. So Russian ruble is trending down when you compare it against a much stronger standard, and the Federal Reserve note is trending down when you compare it to a much more solid standard in the form of the gold standard, which is what this chart reflects here. So over the last, let me see here, this is just the last month. And so one fiat note in regards to how many units of what's the portion rather of gold that you can acquire with one single unit that's in my hand at this current moment is, let me see here, it's about let me get this right, 0.0005. So fractionally breaking it down, literally, you're not even getting nowhere near a single percentage of gold, or a single, nowhere near. You can probably get a dust flake with a single unit of Federal Reserve note. You can't even get nowhere near a gram of gold right now, which is 1/10 of a full ounce. A gram. 1 gram is 1/31st of a single ounce of gram, and which right now it might cost you $80, $80 to $90 for 1 gram, and you can't even get one. So you can literally buy some dust. When they saw a piece of gold off and the crumbs that fall from it, that's what one single dollar can purchase. So ultimately speaking, in the grander scheme of things, the dollar's not doing too good either. We're purchasing a lot less, not to the magnitude of what's happening in Russia, but once again, this is all about protecting the facade that the Federal Reserve is stable and the government is continue to print with no limitations. But yet this chart right here lets us know that we're trending down, and that's a reflection of the paper price of a unit of gold going up to where if once it crosses 2,000, we're going to dip a lot lower on this chart because it's inverted. So anyway, just thought I'll bring it to your attention real quick. And then a couple more headlines I'll go through real quick, and then we can keep it moving. All right, so let me so more on the cooperation between Russia and China. Here is just a tweet that came out earlier, because Google, Apple Pay, and Samsung Pay, and all the other MasterCards, whatever, they've all cut access to Russia. So all those cards, your smartphone, all that stuff, that tapping stuff won't work. But look what China's doing. Russia's FESCO says that customers can pay in Chinese yuan. This is the largest intermodal transport operator in Russia. So pay attention. This is according to Gold Tech. So ultimately, the FESCO Pay, or whatever that is, whatever the payment mechanism from China, so they're allowing them to use a yuan within Russia, which is that cooperation between two BRIC nations. So that's definitely not going to be talked about in the mainstream news source. That's a way of getting around sanctions. Next one here. This is very concerning for my people in Australia and people in that direction. The end of ATMs in Australia. So thousands of cash machines are removed across the country as banks go digital. So this is just some information highlighting how, as the banking model shifts from physical to digital, the consolidation of all the banks, i.e. the video I did a while ago about the cash squeeze, the more ATMs are being removed, more small retail commercial banks are being closed down. So if it's, mind you, everything first happens in Australia and then eventually Canada and all the former British colonies, where, if you guys notice the trend. So if they're removing ATMs in Australia, how long before we notice it here? The average Joe notices here in the U.S. So something to pay attention to. This is another story saying the same thing. So here's more information on the collaboration between China and Russia. China won't join Russia sanctions, banking regulators warn. So Chinese banking regulators saying, we're not joining your party. We're gonna do our own thing. More than likely, we got something planned. So anyway, and here's something as well. This says from Powell, quote from earlier. It says Powell says it's possible to have more than one reserve currency, and I think with gold we're witnessing that. And of course, all my digital assets people, like you see here, it says Bitcoin. That's believe me. I don't think the bankers, the central bankers, are really too concerned with Bitcoin in the scale of having gold, because gold is not a public ledger that you can see who, where, when, and how much was sent. That's just my 2 cents. Next one here. Powell underscores the war underscores need for action on digital currency. So he's basically saying, because of the privacy side of things, I put a video on Twitter saying that because of the privacy side of things, it's a concern. There's some regulation needed, especially if, Russia decide if they choose to use the narrative that Russia is using Bitcoin to escape sanctions. Believe me, they're going to change the narrative of what's going to happen with the regulation in this country, which they put on pause for now to see how this whole situation in the Eastern Hemisphere plays out. But yet it's okay for Ukraine to accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Polkadot. That's okay. Freedom Convoy truckers, you can't, receive payments of any kind. but because we are behind the Ukrainian narrative, they can receive funds. Okay, yeah. And the last one here, this comes from the community as well. Just no, it's more the same thing. Just shines more light from a different narrative. But once again, this is what's happening in the news. So anyway, let's talk. Couple minutes, take a couple phone calls, and then we're going to let me get this phone line open. So it went longer than I wanted to in my rants, but I had to get all out my chest. So let's get some calls real quick. Hello, caller. Where you calling from?
Mike, Tony from Oakland. How you doing, brother?
TB, doing good, man. Give me a quick thought, boss.
One more again, man. I got to give it to the high. I'm almost convinced that this has all been a setup. Because why would Russia send their B team in to take over Ukraine and then sit and wait for a signal to go in on Kiev?
Good point. That's a good point. Something worth thinking about.
Because that makes me, if I'm at war, I'm sending my A team, and then my B team's cleanup. And the other thing is that they kicked them out of the banking system, but allowed Ukraine to use crypto, and Russia kicked Bitcoin out. But I'm reading things that Russia is using Bitcoin in order to subvert the financial system, which I'm not sure about.
Right.
But if you look at the U.S. dollar is strong. Why would they want to use crypto if their dollar is strong? If you're going to have your dollar be strong against a currency that you're trying to say that is the next currency, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
You want your currency to be weak. You want it to be in the 80s.
Yeah.
So you can say, well, we need to move on.
Right.
But no, the U.S. is making the dollar strong and saying that everybody's using this or forcing it on everybody.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, this thing is going to break.
Correct.
And those people who assumed that this next big thing was the next big thing are going to be asked out because they aren't going to have anything. Like Klaus says, you're having nothing. And then the people that converted theirs over to gold or solid commodities, like gold, like oil, like palladium, and all these other commodities that are doing well, will reap the benefits of that. But those that think that they can hold them and wait till the price goes up, you're going to be out.
Right. You know what?
It's a lack of liquidity, really. That's all it is a lack of liquidity. Russia doesn't have the liquidity, and look what the dollar's done to them. China didn't have the liquidity. Look what the dollar done to their housing, and Turkey is gone because of it.
Right. You know what? And to hear all that, the deciding factor to the strength of the Federal Reserve note and its continuation as the preferred choice for settling payments will be the oil price, I think, because with a stronger dollar and us having a oil pinch or soon to have an oil pinch, and Russia having the most oil, relatively speaking, the most oil, and they got nice little reserves of oil, I think that can be the ultimate game changer because it's going to make it that much more expensive for us to import oil as oil prices go up. So it's like, and of course, Biden's speech last night talking about made in America now. So he's trying to position themselves strong for the midterm. So they're going to try to talk about, our oil companies here need to produce more. We need to get back to, that narrative they're trying to paint. So I think oil somehow, some way, the price of oil going up or down is going to be a deciding factor in all this, man.
Right. But if you start talking about building that next generation here in the United States, all that money has to go back to the people you owe that money to. That money just don't, we're starting over from here. And you said it, you had it on your chart and you had it right. Even though the dollar is going up, the value of the dollar is going down.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna let you go.
Appreciate you, man. Good to hear from you. And also, good heads up on our Shanghai stuff because I'm gonna dive in that as well because I think that's going to be a part of the whole equation as well. So appreciate you bringing that to my attention again.
Oh, no problem, man. And if you look in the Discord, somebody put the Pfizer dump out, so that's a good one too.
Bet. Good deal, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hello, Carlos. Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. How you doing? This is Chopper from Philly. How are you?
Doing good, my friend. What's in your mind? Give me a quick thought.
Man, what a time to be alive, right?
Tell me about it.
Just curious to hear your thoughts, man. I think we are witnessing the collapse of the strongest institution that has ever been created.
So I'm sorry,
us
you
right now.
kind of broke up a little bit. Give me that one more time.
I think we are witnessing the collapse of the strongest institution that has ever ruled this earth, which is the central banking system.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm just curious to hear your thought on that.
I definitely feel that the world is waking up to the fact that the central banking model is the ultimate reason for income inequality, the wealth gap, the instability in the financial sector, as well as the current creation of all the unsustainable bubbles. So as a result of that, it's going to be hard to keep the trust in the current monetary paradigm in general. So I'd imagine that, things are not really playing into their favor. Problem is, the governments, federal governments themselves are still in bed with the central banking system. So those two there, as long as they still control the prevailing narrative, as well as this issuance of the CBDC that's coming soon to the U.S., they still run the risk of just continuing on in their so-called power grab moving forward, but just more so in the digital realm solely. So it's twofold, man. I hope they're scrambling for dear life, but then again, because of the creation of the decentralized ledger technology, this exciting people to go solely cashless with no pushback. That's of concern as well, because the only way they can pull off a heist of this magnitude is to entice them with something in between that gets them rooting for this heist to go digital, and that happens to be this thing above my shoulder right here. But anyway,
but I mean, here's the thing: what is the war in Ukraine really about? It's not about Ukraine. It's about the central banking system is going after Putin, because Putin has always been at war with the central banking system. Right. This goes back to before, back when the Tsars and Nicholas the Tsar was still in power, and the Bolshevik Revolution was funded by these people, the Rothschilds or whatnot. Right. And they basically killed off the last Roman monarchy, and ever since then they've been at war with each other. But back to BRICS, right? BRICS. What is that made of? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, right?
Correct. With a couple newbies in there as well. They got a couple newbies that's been added.
But what do they have in common? They all have incredible natural resources.
They got unimaginable natural resources. A lot of those grounds ain't never really been tapped. They've been saving. That's their reserves in the ground still. So
well, I mean, we keep talking about the ruble and the dollar.
Yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
So isn't every fiat currency right now connected to the dollar? So it's all going to fall relative to I guess relative to the weight of the dollar, if you know what I mean.
Correct.
Russia's like, I don't care about the dollar. The dollar is useless. I got gold.
Right.
And I'm gonna make a new currency with new federal notes that I can trade in my gold and revalue it.
Right. 100%.
But I mean, it's just really interesting to think it's always about the central banking system. It's always the banksters causing these wars, man. Right. And I'm only 31 years old. I don't really know much about history, too much, further than like 2000. But it seems like would have never been able to fly back in 2000 when the government was really as strong as it at its strongest, I think. I mean, these guys are the biggest gangsters in the world. If you don't play by the dollar, then they come in and they make you play by the dollar. You know what I mean?
Bad things happen.
I don't know, man.
Bad things happen if you don't play their game. But hey, man, I appreciate you calling. They need a couple more calls in there.
All right, man.
Appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Have a great day, Mike.
You too. Yeah, good stuff, man. Appreciate that. So yeah, we'll find out how things play out. And I saw a super chat. I want to acknowledge that. I apologize. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Appreciate that love right there, my man. Thank you for the blessing. Let me see if I can scroll it real quick and find that super chat. And because I want to definitely acknowledge that. Give me 1 second here. I missed some calls, but bear with me. Let me see if I can find that super chat real quick. There we go. I want to acknowledge this. The Thunderstorm, appreciate you, my man, for the love offering. It says, would gold be considered adversarial to a carbon neutral economy? Great question. I would say yes and no. And so yes, because it would be one of those things that the cost of energy to go get it. And of course, they can say oil is bad, and the burning of, gas emissions and stuff like that is bad. So we're going to dial back on that. So anything is possible. But yet, let me share something with you real quick that is definitely worth mentioning, because As I've always said before, as the rules of the game get tighter, you tend to change the rules of the game. And let me share something with you real quick that is a part of the changing of the rules that could come about, in my personal opinion, that will come about within this decade. Let me grab this article real quick so you guys can see it, because this should be of concern, because this is one of my concerns, rather, for certain types of investments. And this plays into that motto: if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But here is some news out of Honduras that would definitely is not going to just remain isolated to Honduras. But let me share this with you real quick. It says newly elected Honduras government to ban open pit mining. And the reason is she was cited as saying, let me see, what did I say? It was something about Honduras mines gold, silver, copper, lead, and zinc. But on Monday, the Ministry of Mining described, quote, let me see, extractive exploitation, unquote, as, quote, harmful to the state of Honduras. So extractive exploitation is a new terminology that I've just heard from this particular regime here in Honduras. So that word can float around to other nations, to where a lot of other heavily populated mining jurisdictions could also face the fact that carbon emissions and mining and and all that bad for the ozone layer could become a part of the equation, because they want to literally, without nationalizing mines in certain jurisdictions, if they remove the licenses where you can't mine it no more, those become dead properties, meaning that there will be no more gold and, natural minerals, whatever, being brought up for profit's sake. And so that'll impact, your shares and prices and companies or whatever. So all that stuff is possibly on the table, man. So, but I just thought we'd bring that to your attention, because, during the during the course of the game, depending on who's winning, the controlling narrative usually changes, as well as the rules of the game. So anyway, let's get another call in here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, it's Ed. How you doing, Mike?
Ed, doing good, my man. What's in your mind? Give me a quick thought.
Okay, I just want to throw out some numbers at you. Korean War, 5 million dead, 2.5 million civilians. Vietnamese War, 3 million dead, 2.1 million civilians. Some of these are, disputed. Iraqi War, 1.1 million civilians. And, when we do it, or our allies do it, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Dead bodies laying around, or, not like they're doing now.
Right.
They're praying 1,000 people died in this thing yet, and every life is sacred,
Yeah.
But, Condoleezza Rice was on TV saying it is so wrong to take over a sovereign nation. She was in on the takeover and occupation of Iraq.
Right.
And, Americans are just so gullible, they don't think about that. They don't think about the 2 million Vietnamese we killed, 1 million Iraqis, and they get, they're flying the Ukrainian flag on their social media, and they wouldn't put American flag up, God forbid, American flag, but they'll fly that Ukrainian thing. And we wouldn't tolerate this for one day. If Russia came in and put all the NATO's got pretty much got Putin surrounded, and then they're talking about putting Ukraine in, we wouldn't tolerate that. We wouldn't have people have weapons on our border. We'd run them out of there, bomb them out of there as quick as we could.
Right.
Putin's one of the greatest leaders in the world. And, he cares about his people. You know what he did with the homosexuals? He said, do what you want behind your doors. You're not destroying our families. You're not teaching our kids in school. You're not counseling our children.
Yeah.
That's controversial, but it's scriptural.
Right.
I like to be scripturally correct. I don't care about politically correct.
Yeah. Hey, man.
But it just upsets me that these people get all fired up and all on their high horses about some people dying over there where they're protecting their own property, and then don't think a thing about all the millions of people we killed. It's just ridiculous.
It's double standard, man.
I'm sick of it.
Clearly a double standard. And of course, last night during Biden's little spiel, he was talking about another thing, a complete lie. No fact checkers out talking, covering anything he said. He gave that same narrative again. Talking about guns. He's like, the weapons industry or whatever, all the manufacturers, they're the only one that's, they can't be held accountable. They can't be sued. And they're the only one. I'm thinking like, what about the pharmaceutical companies for this current experimentation going on? Like, they can't be sued either. But, so just these lies are this, they're getting out of hand, but the fact checkers don't check this particular administration. So, but anyway, man, let me get some more calls, man.
One more thing.
Yeah,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing, Mike. These people, that believe in these lies, even Fox News telling these lies that, Russia is getting held off by these guys. These guys are out there with AK-47s. Russia could take that whole country in 48 hours.
Yeah.
They're holding back. He's holding back because he don't want to kill those Russian people sitting over there in Kyiv.
Right.
And they ought to be thankful. They keep running their mouths. He's going to blow up the whole damn city. And it just makes me mad that America's so gullible.
Right.
But anyway, love your show.
I agree, man. Appreciate you. And of course, the fact he's sending his JV team in comparison to his true A team, the true hit squad type of team lets us know that there's more to the story than we've been told. So appreciate you, man.
That's like saying we can't take Cuba. It's a joke.
Good stuff, man.
All right, take care.
All righty, man. Let me get one more call, so I apologize. Yeah. So I think it's hard to control the past narratives on a lot of things. So it's a scramble right now to try to keep people in this whole paradigm that we're in. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, Mike, long time no hear. This is Aaron from the good state of Iowa. How are you doing today?
Aaron, I'm doing good, my friend. What's in your mind? Give me a quick thought.
Well, quick thought. I'm looking at my Canadian flag hanging with my F. Biden flag. And if the United States were so concerned about people's rights, we would be invading Canada right now. And that's all I got to say. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right, my friend. Appreciate you. Yeah. Good stuff, man. All right, keep it moving. Yeah, so for those who are just joining in, I start off by talking about some of the important things that let me pull it up here real quick if I can. Yeah, so I shared a couple videos or whatnot earlier on and just showing how central bankers ultimately fear the world finding out about gold and is probably scared. That's why they're trying to control the Russian media so that more talks of the possibility of Russia narrative being contradictory to theirs getting out and people really questioning things. And so we go from there. Hello, caller. Where are you calling from? Steve, what's going on, my man? Give me something quick.
Hey, Ed was coming in hot. Guns blazing there. But he's correct.
Yeah.
Russia's just doing what they do, and we would not allow Russia or any other country to roll up on whatever state you want to put it.
Yeah.
Texas, Oregon, and say you need to let them do what they do, or else we're coming in.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen. So
Right.
He's absolutely correct on that, and along with the moral things that he also spoke about also.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that being said, I shot you a video. First casualties of war is truth. That's on your
Okay.
on your RTD. It's only about 5 minutes long, but it's pretty good because it talks about the Nazis.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've heard about. That's what we've heard about
Right.
in Ukraine. Nazis,
Right.
Nazis, and people turn around and forget.
Right.
That,
100%.
after the war, that's exactly what the U.S. did, was take their highest scientists, etc., and brought them over here.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys have been ingrained in this society, government since then. That's how we got our space program going.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Very
of that type of stuff, though. The OSS was the forerunner on the CIA.
Yeah.
So that's how they brought about the CIA. But that is it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and get off of here.
Appreciate you, man.
One message for LBP, and this goes back to what's going on and to get prepped as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
LBP, if they don't have the flea markets down there to get the stuff that you need, come on over. Take a weekend, i.e. like a Saturday and Sunday. Make sure you're here for a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
And get on up to the Oakland flea market. And if you need me to meet you down there, so you don't know what the prices are, I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
So you can get your stuff. But you have this stuff long enough now, Mike, so
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Right. That's some
Once you
serious
have
stuff, man. But hey, watch this. No, appreciate your call. Let me get a couple more calls there while I can. So I appreciate you as always, Steve. Thanks.
All right,
I got the video. I played the video on screen,
right.
so people get a chance to see what you're talking about.
No, it's all good.
All right, be good.
Take care.
Yeah. Hello, caller. Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. Alexandra from Central Florida. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Appreciate you. What's on your mind? Give me a quick thought.
What's on my mind is, has anyone watched the Putin speech before this all started? If we agree with the translators, essentially what he's saying is, hey, I've been screaming for 20 years for NATO to get off my borders and the U.S. to back up. And I think he's just had enough.
Right. No doubt.
And when you think about it, that makes me believe that this is all the U.S.'s fault.
Right.
This is all NATO's fault.
Right. Especially
no one listens to him.
Right. And that's the thing. They have not considered his legitimate cry that, this is what's going on. Like, and of course, with him coming out most recently with that whole denazification or the Nazi, talking about that Nazi stuff, referring to the infiltrators of Ukraine and beyond, that's some serious business, because, I don't think he's going to back down. And I'd assume he's been preparing for this moment to where he's going to probably be able to, draw this thing out a little bit longer than what the West is probably ready to actually go for. So we'll find out. But, yeah, they don't take him serious, man.
I absolutely agree. No one's been listening. He's had enough. Not that I condone it, but wow.
Right. We're at that point where something has to give. And unfortunately, it seemed like, the war is going to be a part of that. And hopefully not World War III. I'm hearing more narratives talk about that, because it don't help that they're, one of their politicians, I forgot his name, Lavrov, talk about, nuclear is not a good thing for nobody. So I don't like the word nuclear at all.
Well, a reason for him to use nuclear is wherever he lands it, then that's not going to be viable soil. Nobody's going to be able to live there. It'll create the border he's been screaming for.
Right.
He's afraid of NATO having come in so close that they can nuke them. He says it very specifically. They have a 5-minute bomb, a 6-minute, this is out of his safety, protecting his country.
Right.
And no one would take him seriously. Anyway.
Right. But hey,
I hate the whole thing, but
appreciate you calling and sharing your insights. Good to hear from you. Thank you for being a part of the community as well.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, be good. Yeah. Well, all right, people. We're approaching an hour point. I'm sure a lot more calls, but for the sake of time, want to keep things relatively condensed. We're definitely within an hour. But I appreciate everybody for joining us. Thanks for being a part of the community. As always, any new first-time viewers, watch the replay and you see all my rants and the videos I showed and all the information pointing to how central bankers ultimately fear gold. And Alan Greenspan gave us the reason why, and I'll actually end with that clip. But other than that, be blessed, be safe. As always, for those that are a part of the community, make sure you join the Discord and the Telegram. Share your stories, share videos from your favorite content creators so we can stay plugged in. And other than that, be blessed, be safe. Continue to do what you know best, because if you're tuned in now, so you know what's happening right now. You know the severity of everything we're facing, but also through prayer, God's going to take care of us. So no worries. Don't fret. Don't be discouraged. God is with us all. So we're going to be just fine. So anyway, that's all I have. I can rant for more, but I'm not. Be blessed, be safe. And I'll actually end off with the Greenspan video that I started off with. So be blessed, be safe, and I'll see you guys later.
Ask though, one of the really interesting chapters in your book is about gold, and there's been a lot of media debate in the past about your views on gold. You yourself have posed the question as to why would anyone want to buy this barbarous relic, but do you think that gold is currently a good investment given what you're saying about the potential for turmoil?
Yes. Look, remember what we're looking at. Gold is a currency. It is still, by all evidences, the premier currency where no fiat currency, including the dollar, can match it. And so that the issue is, if you're looking at a question of turmoil, you will find, as we always have in the past, it moves into the gold price. But the gold price is actually sort of half a commodity price. So when the economy is weakening, it goes down like copper. But it's also got a monetary characteristic which is intrinsic. It's not inbred into human beings. I cannot conceive of any mechanism by which you could say that, but it behaves as though it is. Intrinsic currencies like gold and silver, for example, are acceptable without a third-party guarantee. And the question is, why do central banks put money into an asset which has no rate of return, but cost of storage and insurance and everything else like that? Why are they doing that? If you look at the data, with a very few exceptions, all of the developed countries have gold reserves. Why?